The Truth and Reconciliation Commission called for funding from the federal government to uncover the remains of children at residential schools across Canada, but were denied back in 2009. Now, the province of Alberta announcing millions in grants. Joining me to talk about this long road to reconciliation, Indigenous activist Michelle Robinson. Can you just give us your first reaction to this announcement?
It's a relief. It's long overdue. In 2001, there were bodies that were found just south of Calgary and were re-exhumed and proper ceremony was done. But in 2007, when the Truth and Reconciliation Commission put together a committee to really go into unmarked graves and missing children, then the late Jim Prentice, Indian Affairs Minister, said that, in the spring, I want to say April of 2007, said that this would be a top priority for him. And then, of course, when the committee came back asking for more funding to start putting work towards this issue, they were denied that. So I think for our premier to commit funds, like this is back to Call to Action 75, that concept that we had to have all of the provincial and territorial governments working together to start properly marking these children, these Indigenous children that had died in these Indian residential conditions. And I want to, just absolutely pray and hope that this helps some of our members of our community that are grieving right now in some of the worst trauma.
How important is it that the funding is to be applied for from different communities and different groups? So to me, it seems that it's about the groups and the communities themselves rather than just the province saying, here's the money here. They're kind of giving over some ownership to this.
This is survivor-centered. So we want to make sure that, what one nation decides within Alberta may be different than what another nation would decide to do. And we need to respect that. It'll be a different process for each one based on that survivor-centered conversation. So it's actually very real reconciliation means working together on these truths. And that's what it sounds like, that framework. I mean, I have reservations. I'm very concerned. I'm very concerned that the Truth and Reconciliation Commission themselves had a very limited scope of what was deemed an Indian residential school, according to Indian Affairs, and what wasn't included. And then that bigger picture of day schools not being properly included. And so there's always concerns that there will be gaps in this process anyway.
It's not just about locating the bodies of these young children, but it's also about honoring them. And I think that that's really interesting going forward, because if we start to see these popping up, like honoring these young children across the country, what do you think that means for moving forward in a path forward and a better understanding about what actually happened?
My hope is that we start to, see these cemeteries as not something to be abandoned, but to something to wear our orange shirts and go to and talk about those atrocities, just as we do every November 11th for Remembrance Day, and talk about how we never want that to happen again. This is exactly that same conversation in a different context that we want to see Canadians and Indigenous people come together with this truth so that we can start having meaningful reconciliation.
Thanks so much for your time, Michelle Robinson.